What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr Wargames, and today I am bringing you an anti-meta Dark World Danger profile. That's right, this deck is here to take on Kashtira's and all of the other meta decks post-ban list and do insanely well. I've tested it out quite a lot, and it is just the whole capability of being able to go second, play so many board-breaking cards that deal with the Kashtira's walking, talking Macrocosmo and they're more. A lot of people do not expect the cards that are in this, and it does incredibly well. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe. If you want to see more Dark World content along with more other content from the channel, make sure you smash that like button. Getting it above 50 likes in the first 24 hours will unlock a test stand video or just more content for this particular deck, and a deck list will be in the description down below. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst into the profile. So, we are playing 2 Grepher Dragon. Now, it's entirely up to you whether you want to play 2 Grepher and 3 Rainbow, or 2 Rainbow and 3 Grepher. But the reason I've got the balance like this is the idea that the Rainbow is going to search out the Grepher. Grepher is needed for the fusion plays and loop everything around. Now, arguably, if you know you're going to a local environment where the majority of people are going to be playing Kashtira's, you'll probably go for a 3 and a 2, or you could arguably go for a 2 and a 2, because you're not going to be relying on these going to the graveyard as much. That being said, one of the routes that does get you into an OTK play does need a level 8 in the hand, but you do have multiple routes in order to complete that route for the OTK. We've then got the 3 Genta. Now, I would still play 3 of this, even under the Macrocosmos of the Rise Heart, because we are playing main deck outs in order to flip them face down. Spoiler, Book of Eclipse, and just getting rid of them in general in order to allow us to continue to make our plays. Now, on top of that as well, keep in mind that you can't activate Genta because it does send as cost in order to get you out the gates of the Dark World under a Macrocosmo or Rise Heart in a specific sense. However, going first, you still need it as well. So there are them times where, let's just say your opponent is playing an OTK cash build, they roll the dice roll, they make you go first. That's when you still need to be able to play. You can't just go, okay, brick, pass, because then you will get OTK'd. So still rocking the triple Genta, triple Snow, 1 silver, 1 gold, 1 Ceruli, and then the 1 kind of Salamander Catalyzer, which loops everything together. The reason Catalyzer is actually so important is because you reveal as like part of its effect. So you reveal itself and 1 Fiend, and then you discard the other one. So it doesn't need to go to the graveyard. You don't discard and then choose to revive or special this guy. So what you'll be able to do is you can reveal this in a level 8, special the level 8, send this guy to the graveyard, which will ultimately get banished. And then all you need to do is successfully resolve a level 8 danger or get another level 8 to the board, and that will instigate your OTK play through Numeron Dragon. The reason we've got 1, 1 and 1 is, again, it's kind of going through that understanding of, it's great going first, giving your opponent, if they're playing Cash, a Ceruli, because then they can't deal with it, they can't get rid of it unless they've opened up a berth. So you kind of want to leave it on their board. However, if you're going second, you don't want to be relying on these guys. You're not going to be able to hand loop your opponent successfully, especially if they drop a D shifter as well. So you do have to kind of keep both those scenarios in your mind. And if you do see that there's a lot of D shifters running around your locals, that's where I'd personally say, right, you need to look at a way of getting the Gamma package into the deck in order to kind of deal with that and make sure that you have as much playability as possible, so it doesn't go shifter and you have to go, okay, cool, pass. There is ways in this deck that you can play under shifter should that happen to you as well. Obviously, ideally going second, you can push for the OTK. You can also go for the Baguska into the Zeus play, but obviously going first as well, you're not going to want to go for an OTK play. That's where you go Baguska to control the board state. So that's it for the Dark Worlds. Moving on to the dangers using the Catalyzer as kind of like a bridge is double Bigfoot. We're going blind second, so double Bigfoot, double Nessie, double Mothman. You can actually resolve the Mothman effect now, woohoo! Unless you're up against Tyr and you don't do that. We've got the 1 Thunderbird has gone back in alongside the Sukanoko, the Jackalope, and of course the Zephyros. Now the Thunderbird is actually really, really important, and I'm going to skip ahead to the spells just quickly to show you that we are main decking Book of Eclipse. So the reason that Thunderbird is actually a little bit more important than Bigfoot is, in theory, if Thunderbird gets discarded, Thunderbird can pop a set card. So that's where you can activate Book of Eclipse, flip everything face down, and then activate the Thunderbird, discard the Thunderbird through trading or anything like that, pop one of the set cards, and you're good to continue to roll. Book of Eclipse also unlocks your zones, and as Dark World Dangers, we do like to fill up our zones very quickly. So you do need to make sure that you can unlock them as consistently and as quickly as possible. And then off the back of that as well, of course, Bigfoot is another nice out. What you've got to remember about the dangers is they just need to be discarded. They don't need to go to the graveyard. So if you were to reveal a Bigfoot and it gets discarded, you can still attempt to pop that Rise Heart, which is really, really important because, yes, they will mandatory chain link trigger to attach one of the banished cards. but then Chain Link 2 will be your danger card to pop that Rise Heart, meaning that the Macrocosmo is unlocked. You could attempt to pop the Shangri-La, but keep in mind it does have its built-in protection effect. So that's it with the dangers, with the little bit of a preview for the Book of Eclipse as a part of a board breaker. Speaking of board breakers, the other cards we are using is 2 Lava Golem. Now, obviously, we are playing, again, skipping ahead to the spells a little bit, trading. So you've got your 5 Dark World targets, your 3 Danger targets, and of course your 2 Lava Golem targets. So if you do go first, you can trade in, get rid of a Lava Golem, good to go. However, going second, what you kind of want to do is you let your opponent go, okay, draw, standby phase, trigger Shangri-La, special summon out Fenrir. You go, okay, cool. Then what you do is if you need your zones, you Lava Golem their Rise Heart and their Shangri-La. If you don't need your zones, you get rid of the Rise Heart and you get rid of the Fenrir, and then you don't really need to worry too much about the Shangri-La unless you're going to play Part of Desires, which we're not doing in this build anyway. So you've got ways of breaking the board. Even if you were to flip them face down, you can, of course, Lava Golem again, and that's where the Book of Eclipse really comes into play, is because you can Book Eclipse defensively or offensively. Obviously, you want to do it offensively so they don't have a chance to pretty much push in for game, and kind of go from there. Another card that I had considered, but I haven't put it into play as of yet, is Danger Dogman. And the reason I would consider Danger Dogman is for the pure fact that technically, if I Lava Golem my opponent and then discard the Danger Dogman, I'm able to reduce that to 2k, which with my Numeron Dragon will guarantee me OTK just off of the back of a Lava Golem. You could put Ras Fear Mode in here if you want to, but it's a lot more difficult to kind of deal with and get rid of. Again, you'd have to then Eclipse it to put it face down to then pop it, and kind of move it that way as well. The last monster we are playing, again I'm bouncing around a bit, is the Astral Karibo. Now the reason this is so good is because, like I've mentioned before in a previous profile, this can unlock you a direct route into Dragulabon because it can reveal itself and become a level 8. Or of course it can get you into a Baguska as your defensive play, or your extender in the form of being able to draw more cards in Daguerres and trigger discard effects. So it's got 3 uses for you. Obviously keep in mind that if it is on the field, you are locked into numbers while it is on the field. But the monster that you use it as material for cannot be destroyed by card effect, which is really, really important. So I think it's a great extender. The fact that it lets you adapt between 4s and 8s is really, really important. And if you really wanted to, and you were playing Dogman with Nessie, you could even explore some rank 7s yourself. That would then, of course, allow you to kind of play a mini cash tier engine. So you could play Fenrir, you could play Shangri-Las, you could play your own Rise Hearts, everything like that. But ultimately, I feel what we've got here is perfectly enough. For the rest of the spells, we've got 2 talents, 2 gates, 1 ascension, 1 archives. Again, with all of this, it's kind of keeping in mind that if you're under a macro or like the Rise Heart, and of course you could possibly be under a shifter, your graveyard is going to be less prominent. So these 3 cards instantly become a little bit worse. Obviously, your Dark World is good because it will still allow you to trigger and it'll still allow you to discard your cards, but you can't banish them from the graveyard because they won't be in the graveyard. Arguably, if you wanted to make this go more heavy on going second, you could put in Triple Tactic Thrust, and putting in Triple Tactic Thrust will allow you to get instant access to your Triple Tactics. You could also get access to your trading, as it is a normal spell as well. But if you were to do something like that, I would arguably consider looking into stuff like Lightning Storms, maybe even evenly matches. But ideally, you want to kind of go for an OTK push, because if you leave Kashtira's with monsters in their graveyard, even though you've cleared off their board, they'll still be able to use like Birth and re-loop it and everything else like that, which is why Zeus is probably just as important as anything else. So that's it for the main deck, exact 40 cards on that one. Moving on to the extra deck. We are rocking 2 of the Grepher Dragons. Just going first, being able to protect your board from Nibiru's, and keeping in mind it's something you want to go to a little bit earlier than you usually would in Dark Worlds, purely because there are Nibiru's running around all over the place because of Kashtira. So that is one thing to keep in mind. We'll do the Link Monsters first, and then I'll do the XYZ. So for the Link Monsters, pretty standard on this one. Cross Sheep, Muckraker, IP, Unicorn, Appaloosa, and World Sea Zelantis. Now, you can play other OTK cards if you want to. You can play stuff like Access Code Talker, but it's rare that you're going to be able to get the materials round as you go. And the reason I've gone with the Muckraker play, or the Muckraker play, and the World Sea Zelantis play is, again, you could technically eclipse your opponent. Now, let me just double check, because I don't believe I've ever really got to this point. No, just banishes all monsters. I just wanted to show you there wasn't banish all face-up monsters. But the way this would work is, again, you can Book of Eclipse your opponent, and then if you can't get to a Zeus, if you can't kind of complete that board wipe, you do have another route of going into the Muckraker, using its effect, locking yourself into Fiends while having Zelantis on the board. Zelantis effect, banish everything, bring only your stuff back, because what you're banishing is not Fiends, so they can't come back. Ultimately, again, if you're worried about the cash matchup, this is where you'll start doubling up some of your cards. And again, I'll show you the XYZs and then I'll explain the cards you want to double up as your priority. So we've got the one Coach King Giant Trainer, just for those time cons, Baguska, Daguerres, Hope Harbinger, Numenon Dragon, Dragulabon, and then of course Zeus. Now, if you were to double up your cards, what I would arguably say is you'd focus on one direct route of play. Now, focusing on one direct route of play, what that would say to me is I would actually double up my Zeuses. So I'd play 2 Zeuses instead of the Zelantis. If I was going blind second, I would take out the Appaloosa. That would become a second Dragulabon. Unicorn would become a second Numeron Dragon. And then you would start doubling up your Baguska. So you'd probably sacrifice the IP for a second Baguska. And then you could sacrifice the Muttrucker, now that you're no longer playing the Zelantis, for a second Daguerres if you wanted to. So they're all your double ups of everything you need mainly. And then from that point on, you've already got 2 of your Grepher Dragons. It's up to you if you want to double up the last 2 cards or even the Hope Harbinger, or if you want to swap them out for other rank 8s or more generic cards. You could arguably, if you double everything up, play a very spicy either main deck or side deck of Winter Cherries. And off the Winter Cherries, you can target stuff like Shangri-La's, Rise Hearts, Darkest Diablos, whatever you're really that worried about, and work it from there as well. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Very straightforward, very simple, and very to the point. This is your anti-meta Darkworld deck. So if you're like, I want to play Darkworld, but my locals is crawling with Kashteras, this is definitely the way to go. I have heard in the past that some people can't get hold of the Astral Karibos. I'm hoping they've gone down a little bit now that Cash aren't playing them. I do suspect that Cash could possibly play them in the future, as really to complete their full not OTK play, but to complete their full combo, which is like 3 zones locked with the possibility of getting the final 2 locked during your turn, plus Fenrir, Shangri-La, and of course Rise Heart and the Darkest Diablos, ripping one from your extra deck and banishing like the top 8. You could look at an Astral Karibo because you just use this to get into your Dragulabon and then you save the monster on the field to make the Rise Heart with. So there's ways to consider Astral Karibo in the deck. It's not going to be for everyone, but it is an option. If you can't afford these, then you can take these out. You need to be careful of not overdoing the board breakers, because if you have too many board breakers and not enough cards you can reveal and discard and trigger and everything else, you do get into a little bit of trouble. So that's where you might want to consider, you know, bumping your Lava Golem up to 3, but maintaining your essence of the Dark Worlds, looking into other cards yourselves as well. So like I said, Lightning Storms, Triple Tractic Frosting, but then unless you've pulled the Frost, if you did pull a Frost, trade it for 3 Astral Karibos, you'll be in a much better position, in my opinion anyway. So that is it for the profile. I hope this has given you an idea of your own build in order to kind of combat the meta in this upcoming format, or the new format now that it is, especially with Cash running all over the place. I don't feel that Cash is going to be as dominant as Tier Elements, and I do feel it's going to have a lot of targets on its back, which is why a deck like this needs to main deck out to that target and be very weary of a Nibiru on itself, and how those targets your opponent will be maining can affect your deck as well. That's one big thing to remember, is if a lot of people are preparing for Kashteras, how are the side deck cards going in for Kashteras, like the Book of Eclipses, Winter Cherries, everything out like that, affecting your deck? Now, obviously, Winter Cherries is a little bit less relevant for this deck, but Book of Eclipses will probably be used, so you've got to be prepared that your end board might get flipped face down, which is why you might want to go towards an Appaloosa route. Baguska will get flipped face down, everything like that. And that's where your Graphic Dragon will give you a bit of an edge, because the Graphic Dragon can turn that Eclipse into you randomly discard one. And if that is your Silver Loop, you've probably looped them for the rest of their cards, and they're not going to be able to break your board. Keep in mind as well that Frost is usually being used to go straight for an evening match, which is a bit of a weakness for this deck, and it is instantly being used for the Triple Tactic Talents. So if you've already activated the Graphic Dragon to negate, they can of course do that as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Like I said, any questions at all, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. And if you want to see more content, either revolving this exact deck or another variation of this deck, then please let me know. I'll be more than happy to bring that for you and go from there. We try to cover everything we can: competitive profiles, budget profiles, special request profiles if I have the cards, and kind of go from there. Anyway, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.